You've booked the venue, you've booked the photographer, you've booked the videographer, you've booked the second videographer, the one who does behind the scenes content of the first videographer film. You've booked someone who shoots 35 mil for the vibe, and now you're paying six people to document one day of your life. And somehow you're still going to go scroll Instagram the night before feeling like it's not enough. Meanwhile, your photographer, the one you hired to actually take the photos, has spent the morning doing your bridesmaid's makeup because the MUA cancelled, mediated an argument between your mum and your future mother in law, carried your dress up 3 flights of stairs, and is now expected to hand you a fully edited, magazine cover worthy real by Sunday night for 1,200 quid, because if she charges more, someone's going to scream scam in the comments when you talk about it. Welcome to the British wedding news industry, or should I say the British wedding season, actually. And everyone is exhausted. No one's talking about it, so let's fix it. Hi, this is The Loud Lens. I'm Khandie. I am not here to be your guru. I'm here to say what some people are thinking and are less brave to talk about it. Now, I will say this was specially requested, so I have leaned in a little bit heavier, but you might not be new here and you're like, hey, who is this girl who's chatting to me? This woman, who is this verbalage coming from? Well, hi, I'm Khandie. I run Khandie Photography out of Northampton. I am ex-military, so subtlety isn't really something that was issued to me at my kit. I wrote two books. No one effing cares about photography, and take the effing lens cap off, because I got sick of watching talented photographers apologize their way out of a living, and sick of watching couples get sold a fantasy instead of a service. The loud lens exists on this podcast stratosphere because the industry is full of quiet rules no one's agreed to. This podcast is where I like to say them out loud. And if that's your kind of chaos, hit subscribe, follow wherever you be listening, because today's episode is a big one and I don't want you to be missing out when it comes up, what comes after it, because there might be some fallout. And your girl loves to go into battle with this. Right, wedding season, let's get into it. Somewhere in the last decade, weddings have stopped being about a day and have become about a deliverable. And I want to be really clear about something. Not one thing is wrong in wanting a beautiful photo of your beautiful day, your best day of your life. That's not the problem. The problem is who's setting the bar for what beautiful means. And it's not you. It's an algorithm that decided a marquee at a countryside manor with fairy lighting and a 4K florist is the baseline, not the aspiration, but the baseline. So, what happens to the couple having 60 people at a village hall with a handmade cake and a playlist made by the groom's mate? By Instagram math, that wedding doesn't exist and it won't get pushed, it won't go viral, and it won't get saved as someone's wedding Pinterest board. Not because it isn't beautiful, but because the algorithm has decided editorial is the only currency worth rewarding. And editorial has a very specific and somewhat expensive aesthetic, and it is not a small thing. That's couples with normal, sensible, human sized budgets sitting there thinking their wedding is somehow less than, because even before they say I do, they're doubting their day. That's brides comparing a 12-hour village hall wedding to a 3-day destination event shot by six people and feeling like they failed at their own celebration. That's not romance. That's the marketing industry pretending to tell you what romance is. Now, let's talk about what this does to the person behind the camera, because frankly, we're all forgetting that guy. We're no longer just wedding photographers. That job description quietly grew arms and legs before anyone really noticed. One day we're expected, like for example, in me, one day you're expected to be the official photographer, obviously, the unofficial day coordinator when the timeline collapses, the emotional support human for a nervous bride or groom or bridal party, the content creator producing reels, behind the scene clips, and getting ready with me style footage, the editor turning around a same week sneak peek because the couple have been trained to expect instant gratification. In fact, one couple said, "Could I do it before I left the venue?" While I know there is a photographer on my feed that does that, that's also the same photographer that quits and rejoins this industry every couple of months. I swear to God, my head is in a spin every time they quit and then come back, quit and come back. Like, no. Occasionally, I'm even the person who's left steaming the dress, finding a missing groomsman, and at one point even delivered emergency McDonald's. Now, I could have said no, but I'm here to please, and I am a chronic people pleaser. Now, here's the bit which actually makes me angry. We're expected to do all of that to an editorial standard while pricing ourselves like it's still 2014, because the second we charge what it actually costs, someone in a Facebook chat or on TikTok will call us greedy, or a bride will post a "they went this photographer" story because we didn't throw in free content on top of the actual job we're hired to do. I remember reading about a photographer who got told, was basically given a bad review, not because they didn't like the images, but because she refused to use people's phones to photograph as well. I'm sorry, you're there using all this equipment. You want her to stop and use photos, like use people's phones? I mean, like what? I was like, okay, occasionally I might take a quick snap with someone's phone, but apparently it was because, like, well, so my granddad handed her his phone and she just wouldn't use it. I'm like, well, she's not responsible. Like, oh my god, like, first of all, legally she can't be responsible for that. Her insurance probably doesn't responsible for that. And also, what she's trying to capture your day. Stop putting things on her. We are terrified of being the villain in someone's Instagram story. So we say yes to more for less every single time. And that fear isn't imagined, by the way. It's very real and a very modern occupational hazard. The fear of public outcries have become part of how photographers price their time, whether they admit it or not. I remember seeing a very well established photographer say why she costs the price she does and getting ripped apart for it. But if you're a photographer, you see why she charges what she does. Now, you can agree with it or not, but honestly, the work is sensational. Just because you don't value it doesn't mean others don't. I also want to talk about something like I call it the team bloat when one job becomes like five. And this is a bit that genuinely baffles me because it used to be a photographer, maybe a videographer, two people. And now I was at a wedding I was attending where they had a lead photographer, a second shooter, a videographer, a behind the scenes videographer, filming the videographer, and then increasingly the separate content creator hired for social media reels. Different person, different invoices, different edit styles, same wedding, and yet followed them all around. Like, I understand a videographer and a photographer following around, but if you're hiring a content creator, surely you don't want them to replicate what all those guys are doing. Tell them to go create other stuff, different stuff. They shouldn't be following those people. Imagine you're walking down the aisle and suddenly you're walking not to the priest or your husband or your wife to be, you're walking it to what is like a paparazzo at the end of a runway fashion walk or something. Now, these couples are not being extravagant for the sake of it. That's the market convincing them that now this is the standard because they've seen five other weddings on their feed with the exact same setup, and no one wants to feel like they've under documented the most expensive day of their life. But here's the cost no one talks about. More people documenting means more people in the day, more conversations to manage, more egos to coordinate, more chances for couples to feel like they're guests at their own wedding rather than people actually living it because there's a camera or a phone pointed at them constantly for content. I mean, imagine that. Nobody sat down and decided this was a good idea. It just kind of accumulated one Pinterest board out enough after another, one Instagram post after another, one Facebook group after another. Especially when imagine you're having a whole day and you just can't sit there and relax because you have to be on point all the time because there's at any point you're being recorded by five or six people. No, that is not okay. That makes your day stressful. That makes your day feel less about your day and more about creating content online than the actual beautifulness of getting married, saying those vows, looking, standing there in front of the people you love the most and saying, "This is my person forever." Instead, you're like, "Hey, babe, what filter did you use on that? Are you gonna post that? Can we do that reel?" I think it's very cute, but sometimes it feels like that's the most important thing. And I know it's really silly because I offer content creation at weddings because one, if you hire me as a photographer and a content creator, it cuts down with somebody. But also, I feel like sometimes it's really dated content you're getting. Like you want a lovely little short video, great. A highlight reel, great. You want it before your videographer does the beautiful cinematic stuff, fine. But like, some of this stuff is really dated and almost I'm like, it's cute for now, but you've just spent all that money. Are you sure that's where you want to go with this? But each to their own, okay? I'm going to slow down this bit because I think this matters more than the algorithm, and that's mental health. For photographers, we're burning out, not metaphorically, actually. 60-hour wedding weeks at peak season, editing till 1 a.m., answering that one quick message on a Sunday, smiling through a day when someone is, while quietly managing someone's family drama, all while performing, living my best life energy on our own social media. So we look booked and busy enough to be entrusted with somebody else's wedding. That's not sustainable. That's a slow motion breakdown with a really nice Lightroom preset subbed on it. For couples, the pressure to be Instagrammable on their wedding is quietly wrecking people's enjoyment of their own day. I've shot weddings where the bride is more anxious about how the reel will perform than she is present with her new partner. That's heartbreaking. Nobody should be grieving their own wedding day while it's still happening because they're measuring against some stranger's highlight reel. We need to be honest about with this industry collectively, couples and photographers both. It has been built on something that's become abundantly odd and almost depleting. The first step to fix this is exactly what we're doing right now, saying it out loud instead of pretending everyone's fine because the photos look great. I don't hate content creators. I think they can offer something so beautiful, but they should not be following your videographer and photographer around. They should be doing their own thing. Why are you buying those to follow each other? They need to do their own thing, right? The videographer and the photographer follow each other because often they are doing something that's cinematic and beautiful altogether. But a content creator is creating a more whimsical, shall I say, informal approach to it. So go have them chase the kids around the dance floor. Go get them doing the quick, fast changes. You're just going to have a quick reel that is dumped onto your hard drive or sent to you via WhatsApp, wherever they're sending it to you the next morning. You know, like it's nice, but Like, they shouldn't be replicating it, okay? Your wedding doesn't need to be algorithm bait to be worth documenting. A small, imperfect, budget, honest wedding, photograph with care is no lesser a wedding. It's just a wedding the internet isn't built to reward, but that doesn't make it any less. Beautiful weddings of happiness. And that says, I'm be honest, this says more about the internet than it does about your day. Like, honestly, it's disgusting that people do this. I've been to a wedding where there were 4 people, and it was the one of the most incredible weddings I've been to. There was so much laughter and fun, and I've been to a wedding. It was a multi-million-pound wedding, and it was stunning and it was beautiful. But the bride still cried in the broom closet because she hardly knew anyone at her own wedding. So I'm not saying they're all like this, but I'm kind of sick of this whole, oh my God, babes, yeah, but is it Instagrammable? You don't need to have the big dress unless you want the big dress. Don't think social media tells you to have it. Okay. I had a bride once booking me, and she was like, I really want these shots. And they were getting married in this very cute country hotel, and all the shots she wanted were done in these very sleek, almost like polished marble. Think of like Monaco kind of venues. And I was like, but you're in a country house with smaller rooms, and there isn't the big chandeliers, the big extravagant ballrooms. And she went, I know. And she was almost disappointed with her venue, but that's all they could afford. And I was like, well, why don't we look for stuff that fits in with that? And she was like, yeah, but I want it to look cool on the Instagram. I'm like, okay, but I can, but you've got to think about where you're booking. Okay. And it's hard because you feel like you're upsetting your bride and groom, I will say. But for photographers, price for what the job actually has become, not what it used to be. If content creation is now part of the ask, it's also part of the invoice. Full stop. You're allowed to say no to being a 6-person business for the price of a 1-person job. Like, I added content creation onto my photography um packages as an additional one. It's only I only do a small amount of it. I'm not there to do a whole day. If you want a whole day, book somebody else. But like, I will add little snippets throughout the day just so you've got some. Okay. Yes, I'm at the front, like I'm in the perfect position to film your vows. I have often done that. Like, but you don't need to have 6 people at your wedding. Like, sometimes I think people don't even need a second shooter, which I know is a very controversial take. My personal take is, unless you're happening at like 2 different venues, do you really need that? Like, is it a massive venue? Can you not get around it? I once was at a wedding where I was the primary shooter, and they had a videographer, and they were like, "Oh, we were hoping to get a second shooter." And I was like, "Do you know what? We couldn't even stand together in this venue because the aisle was so small. The venue was stunning, but like there was nowhere to hide us. And the second shooter, like I only needed a 40 mil to shoot close up to the bride and groom. That's how short the aisle was. Like, what was the second shooter going to shoot? Like, we were always going to be in the shots of each other. We spend more time editing them out than I would be looking at their work, I swear. But for the industry as a whole, we need to stop treating editorial or nothing as a valid aesthetic, and start being loud about the fact that smaller weddings, real budgets, and imperfect days deserve as much craft and respect as the villa manor destination weddings that everyone's chasing. There is nothing wrong with photographing a wedding with people laughing with a bit of food hanging out their mouth, like capture those memories. I'm all for editorial. I love editorial. I shoot editorial. But for me, I think the industry is starting to lose itself in this whole social media stratosphere. And I'm watching brides sort of, and particularly brides and grooms, like really getting bogged down with what they, checking celebrities. Oh, I want to do what they did. That's great. That's great. You want to do it. We can create similar to that at your venue, but we can't create that. That guy and that girl are she's wearing like a Vera Wang $15,000 dress, and you're not. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm just saying though, but you're buying into this whole thing, but there's a lot of money in that, and the beautiful rolling hills is because they shot this at Lake Como or wherever it was. You have to think about that. But do you know what I've loved? And I'm going to just say you now. I don't know if you've noticed the amount of celebrities who get married at registry offices and doing these really cool little, like just little registry ones. I was really shocked to find that this was become like Charlie XCX did one, and I think is it Dua Lipa's just done one. I think this is all lovely. I'm all for small weddings. I love a big wedding, but there's something really small weddings always capture my heart. They always do. I feel like because you have to be so careful who you invite, and it's so niche down your guest list. And I just love them. I love a big wedding. I love when all the bells and whistles are there. But there's something really like they will always have a place in my heart. I love a wedding where it's an unusual venue that doesn't often do weddings. I did one at a restaurant that they never had a wedding before, and because they didn't know where to put the cake, they put it right in the middle of the restaurant. And I was like, that's a great place to put it because everyone could see the cake, and everyone could stay at their table while they're taking pictures of the bride and groom cutting the cake, and they could just move around to make sure everyone got them. And I just thought it was lovely. Like, here's to unusual weddings, having the wedding you want, not the wedding Instagram and social media tells you to have. Okay. So that's the episode. If this has made any of you go, finally, someone said it, send to a photographer friend who needs to hear it, a couple mid planning spiral, maybe that'll do them more good than another pin on their Pinterest board. Subscribe to the Loud Lens wherever you listen, follow along on the socials, and I'll catch you next time. Same lens, same mouth, same volume. I'm Khandie. Please take the effing lens cap off. Okay, let's go.